Hello and welcome to the finals so far, brought to you, of course, Kate, by our great friends at Amy. And it's Kate McCarthy who's back alongside me for week 2 of the finals. The big story that we start with, of course, is the pineapple grapple, the Q clash, banana drama, mango tango, whatever you want to call it, through the week. And it's Brisbane who have been triumphant at large. All those words, I guess, infer a bit of a contest, and outside the first quarter, Kate, it probably wasn't really what we saw tonight.
Yeah, well, they only had the 1 point advantage at quarter time, and it was pretty even until midway through that second quarter, and then Brisbane just flexed their muscles. I mean, last week they were outworked, they were outclassed by Geelong. They really focused, they brought their pressure, they locked in this week, as Dane Sorko said after the game, and they were able to deliver. They scored 41 points from defensive 50 chain. The AFL average is 14 points per game, so they got their game going, they got their midfield going, and it was largely sort of a dominant performance from Brisbane.
Do you feel like last week was a bit of a rude shock for them and they've now clicked into gear, or is it a week-by-week proposition with Brisbane as to which kind of team you get?
I think largely most weeks this year, or in the back half of the year, they've turned up and put up really good performances. I think you can't really take a whole lot away from the Geelong Cats from their performance last week. They took some of their weapons out of the game. Hugh McCluggage, which we'll get onto in a minute, with O'Sheen Mullen playing that really hard tag. But I think Brisbane are a team that you've got to be really wary of when they're wounded and when people write them off, because when their back's against the wall, they come out and they produce performances like they did tonight.
Well, you know it's September when Will Ashcroft is coming to the fore. He's a Norm Smith medalist and he's our Saturday star as well. What a performance in a do-or-die clash, Kate.
Yeah, well, there was no Marcus Ashcroft medal tonight because it wasn't an official Q clash because it was a final, but I think if we were giving one out, it would have gone to Will Ashcroft. 28 disposals, 11 score involvements, 8 clearances, 2 goals. But for me, we know how brilliant and quick he is with his hands inside the contest. I think tonight we really got to see his explosion on the outside, and that's when he plays his best football, when, yes, he wins it in close and gets his quick handball out or a quick kick on from a contest, but we saw him really break out and use his speed like we see here to break away from the Suns and deliver the ball inside forward 50, a number of score involvements, and then a keen onlooker from right up the top of the stands.
Well, I want to know what's going on here. Marcus Ashcroft, a legend of both clubs, the medal is named after him, and yet he was standing up against the post there for the entire game. They couldn't even get him a seat. Come on, guys. Wearing a rugby league hat as well, I think, Marcus Ashcroft.
Yeah, well, it is rugby league folkland up there in Queensland, the rugby. They love it up there.
But yeah,
league. I think that was obviously by choice that he was standing up there to watch the game for sure.
Now, round 20 was the last time these two teams played against each other, and it's probably not a stretch to say that Brisbane's midfield was borderline embarrassed by Gold Coast, and they flipped the script tonight. They were incredible.
Yeah, they were. They dominated every point of the game that you need to as a midfield. They gave up 84 points from stoppage in that round 20 game that you referenced, Xander, and they won clearance. They were dominant at clearance. They won contested possession, which has been a really key marker in the Q clash previously. The team that's won contested possession has gone a long way towards winning the game, and even though they won disposals, they still won tackles, and that is something that if you are trying to up your work rate, up your pressure, you really hang your hat on, and that is the area of the game that they got on top.
Well, speaking of work rate and contest, there's no one more pertinent to mention than Josh Dunkley. You know, you realise why guys like Lachie Neale say that he's the favourite teammate they've ever played with, and he's a brand new record holder as well tonight.
Yeah, he laid 18 tackles, which is the most tackles ever laid in a final. That surpasses Jimmy Bartell's record in the 2009 grand final. But the thing I want to note in a lot of these situations, so at every stoppage tonight, he went to Matt Rowell. He made sure he took care of him, but so many of these tackles that we're seeing are not on Matt Rowell at all. He's happy to get his job done on Matt Rowell and know that as soon as he's not a threat to the stoppage, get up and help out somewhere else and come forward and pressure the ball carrier. Some of these tackles are perfectly executed with technique. They've wrapped up the arm, they've got the holding the ball, but some of them are just ferocious and at the source and coming forward and pressuring the player. So you're right, he would be someone that if you want to pick a teammate that you can rely on week in, week out, Josh Dunkley is that player at Brisbane Lions.
What did he say post-match when he found out he knocked off Jimmy Bartell? He had tingles.
He was very excited to find that out.
Very excited, as you would be. Another guy who really improved off the back of last week was Hugh McCluggage. He was kept well out of the game, as you mentioned, by O'Sheen Mullen, but he came back and had some really strong numbers and showed just what a force he can be in this midfield.
Yeah, he did. He had the 33 disposals, 15 contested. He had 10 clearances. He's only had more than 10 clearances once in his entire career. And for me, it just sort of begs the question, and I know Damien Hardwick all year, all his coaching career, he goes head to head, he backs his midfield in. I just think when you see a team like Geelong and O'Sheen Mullen do a job on Hugh McCluggage, you know their other second best midfielder, or who we consider as their second best midfielder, isn't playing, Lachie Neale. Are you tempted? Are you tempted to send someone to him? And are you tempted to see what that can take away from the Brisbane Lions? Because Hugh McCluggage is so damaging, All-Australian this year. For me, if I'm the opposition coach, I'm doing everything I can to make his night as hard as possible. And as I said, Damien Hardwick doesn't typically tag. I think maybe a trick was missed there. If I'm the opposition coach, I'm sending someone to Hugh McCluggage.
Well, Chris Scott sent the other Irishman out for blood as well, Mark O'Connor. He played on Cam Rayner and did a really good job. Other than those 2 free kicks that Rayner had at the end of the first half last week, he was kept a pretty minimal influence. But tonight just showed the X factor that he has and how he can just break games apart, because it was pretty close at this point and then he got going. Yeah,
he was a wrecking ball. I know this one here, obviously intended to be a pass-off, ended up trickling through for the goal, but the part that I want to focus on is that broken tackle, because he had 8 broken tackles this evening. He was impossible to tackle. He had 16 disposals, 5 tackles of his own, 3 clearances, 9 score involvements, and the goal to go with it. He was unstoppable, and he was someone that looked like they were responding to a whole lot of backlash through the week, which he copped. Probably rightly so, given the free kicks, but He came out, he put that behind him and just made every contest his own, ran through the footy and was really important. And we've seen how big some of the finals are that he can play, and that's the standard for him when finals are moving forward.
So if you're Craig McRae, and we've highlighted a number of individuals for Brisbane, if you're Craig McRae watching that game, Nathan Murphy was there scouting out the opposition tonight. What are you doing? Who are you going to at that first bounce, and who do you try to neutralise out of all those stars?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be Ned Long that he'll put to Hugh McCluggage. I think we've probably seen that in the past. I think he showed, the vast difference in Hugh McCluggage's game this week to last week, and on the back of what it allows the other Lions midfielders and other players in that team to do. He's the fire starter for them. He gets the first possession. He gets the ball out. That's the player I'd be sending Ned Long to.
Gold Coast, not the way they would have liked to have gone out, but still a historic season. Damien Hardwick said last week that the narrative for 15 years has been that they've been a club that's been laughed at, that's been stomped on, that's been disregarded, and now that narrative has changed. How do you look at the Suns season at large? I think pre-season the expectation was that they had to make finals, but they managed to win one. It's a success, isn't it?
Oh, a huge success. I think you can't look at this season anything but that. I know Damien Hardwick and his group tonight will not be looking at it like that. They'll be bitterly disappointed that they couldn't get the job done tonight. But you think when he came into the club 2 years ago, the turnaround, if you said to him, I reckon day one, that will give you a win in your first final series in your second season as coach, you'll go to Perth, you'll win that final, and then you'll get knocked out the next week against Brisbane. I think you'd take that every day of the week. I think the improvement in that team we've seen, they've been behind in games. They've found ways to win. They've found different ways to win as well. And this seems like the trajectory for the Gold Coast Suns from here is just only up.
And not only have they been able to draft some young talent as well, they've been able to retain players like
and
Matt
attract
Rowell
talent as well. There's a lot of talk about where some players might be going in the off-season, and Gold Coast Suns are regularly floated in that equation for a number of those players.
Charlie Kerner, he'd be a handy player up at the Suns, wouldn't he? Let's have a look at some of the classic clangers, and for this week we've got one of, I think, everyone's favourite people in footy now. He was when he was a player, and even more so as a goal umpire, but he relived on AFL.com a moment he'd probably rather forget.
It was a defensive stoppage, and I came to the back of the stoppage and I gathered it, took a couple of steps and then snapped a goal, beautiful goal that I thought, and I celebrated pretty hard and then realised, it was the wrong end.
He thought he'd just kicked a screamer of a goal.
I do remember Brad Johnson coming up to me pretty quickly and had a few colourful words to say, and now I do know why they call him the Smiling Assassin. So.
Round 14, 2008, that one, David Roden. Maybe it inspired his passion to be a goal umpire at the end of the day too.
I think I was confused as to how that happens in the fourth quarter of a game. I think maybe early you can forgive someone, but fourth quarter in, not sure how you know you're not going the right way.
All right, from the classic clangers, let's have a look at some of the contemporary clangers as well. The flipping of the bird's been a big thing all year, but maybe we go back to the glory days where it was much more accepted and I guess acknowledged amongst fans that there it is.
Yeah, well, I missed the foam fingers to start with. I think they were a great addition to the game, but I like the inventivity of the...
Inventivity?
Yeah, the fans that we see, they get very inventive, they get
bang, there we
classy,
go. Craig McRae.
And this one is a double bird. Wait for this one as it comes up. again, the foam
Lovell
fingers
there.
feature, and there you go.
The double bird.
That's it.
Unbelievable. Bailey Smith, that'd make him blush when he did. Yeah, he had the double bird over in Adelaide in the race there.
Bring back the foam fingers, though.
Exactly. The foam
They were
fingers.
missing, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Good American football thing.
I
Get
like
the
it.
bird going. It's time the crowd started fighting back against the players who were giving everyone the bird, I reckon. Speaking of the double bird in Adelaide, let's go back to Adelaide Oval where the Crows had their season ended. The first minor premier to be knocked out in straight sets since 1983. The Kangaroos were the side then, and they were just demolished by one of the strongest defensive sides in the competition. The top three stingiest defences in the league for the season were Collingwood, Adelaide and Hawthorn, and Adelaide's offence just didn't really hold up, but it's the pressure up the ground and probably what John Newcombe brought, which really hurt them.
Yeah, I think going into this game, there was a lot said about the midfield, and without Will Day, who would be the one that stood up in finals. Well, John Newcombe, he's now been the #1 rated player in every single one of his finals that he has played. And I just want to look at some of his clearances. So he won 8 clearances. That's the first centre-bounce clearance of the game. Really well officiated by the umpire, non-controlling umpire, to give that holding free kick. If you're a midfielder and you get your arm held, that's something that can change the game for you. So put Sam Berry on notice to start with. Then he gets the second clearance. Then Berry, a little bit off in this one, able to get the handball out for the clearance as well to Warple. Then they give Peatling the job. Here, Peatling is absolutely gambling either way. It's a man that's won 3 clearances of the game, centre bounce. You're not going to get an arm across and you're going to let him run out the front. Then we get Jordan Dawson, who just loses touch for a little bit, but John Newcombe's good enough to make you pay in an element like that. And then this one, Sam Berry again around the ground. So if you're going to give up the clearance to a guy that's hot, that's fine, but he cannot get another disposal. He lets them go from inside to outside and deliver the ball nicely inside forward 50. And then the other cardinal sin that you can't commit as a midfielder, do not give your opposition midfielder your back. He works him straight under the footy and yet another clearance. But he was everywhere, but his damage at clearance was something that really, really got the ascendancy for Hawthorn.
So we just spoke about how Geelong was able to neutralise a lot of the best midfielders with Mark O'Connor and O'Shane Mullen against Brisbane last week. What do they do next week?
I think, obviously, if I'm Chris Scott, I'm sending O'Shane Mullen straight to John Newcombe. I think that's the magnet that you know you need to stop. As I said, four finals now for John Newcombe, #1 rated player in all 4 of those finals. So I think it's a pretty full-gone conclusion that O'Shane Mullen is going to spend a lot of time with John Newcombe and a lot of time studying John Newcombe this week.
He's been unreal, John Newcombe, but he is one man, and I guess it's emblematic of the issues that Adelaide's had with contested footy in finals. They've been smashed over the last 2 weeks. I guess it's just a different ball game, isn't it, in the finals? The Heat's turned up and the Crows with it a little bit.
Yeah, and it was something that I think we identified a few weeks ago, the midfield from the Adelaide Crows, and they hadn't been amazing all season, but they'd had other avenues to goal, other ways to stop teams. And in finals, though, contested possession is something that is absolutely instrumental to success. And let's have a look at the contested ball in that game on Friday night. So these are the contested possessions. We've got 9 Hawthorn players with 7+ contested possessions, only 5 Adelaide players with more than 7. So let's have a final look, though, into the inside mids, because we've got the 3 top from Hawthorn are all inside mids. Saligo, Dawson, Cumming, Berry, Peatling, and then we've got Rankin at the bottom, which we'll get to in a minute. But these are the numbers that they had, and on the right, they're well below their average for 2025. So every single one of them well below. Peatling had just the 2, averages 8.8 in season. And then the reason we have got Rankin, not to rub insult into injury, but he is the #1 contested ball winner in 2025 for the Adelaide Crows. So his loss in that midfield was massive when it comes to contested possession and what they were missing out there on Friday night.
So is it a mental thing, Kate, that they got to finals and were just outdone in the heat of the battle, or is it, do they beat up on sides that maybe weren't of the calibre of Hawthorn and Collingwood through the season? What is it, or is it a combination of both?
Finals are a different beast. When you get to finals, it's scrappier, there's more contested ball, there's more reliance on having the ball in your front half. We saw Hawthorn win, I think, 7 of the centre bounce clearances in the first quarter. They could lock the ball in and really set up behind that. That matters in finals, because when everything's on the line and it's head over the footy, who wins it then gets an opportunity to go forward. And we saw against Collingwood, I was impressed with their ability to change the way that they played against Collingwood, to try and change things up. But ultimately, it was that midfield, the clearance and the contested possession, which did cost them on Friday night.
Now, Isaac Rankin cut a pretty full-on figure in the crowd and in the rooms after the game. How much of this straight sets exit, both on and off field, with the pressure that it would have given the club, I guess, rests with him and his actions over the last month or so?
I think ultimately you can't put it down to that. But I think when you look at the numbers, I mean, his ability to impact the scoreboard, to win contested possession, as we just said. But then I think there was an element of a fair bit of distraction around the club and going on with the Isaac Rankin situation, the amount of time that it took to be settled and be decided on as well. And I think there was a lot of background noise even when we look at the final last week with the Quaynor situation as well. So I think all of those little things can contribute. I'm not putting it down to largely that at all, but I think when you come into a final, you ask any club, the smoothest approach to finals from on-field, off-field is something that really helps you to feel settled and feel relaxed, and that's obviously not the case with what played out with Isaac Rankin.
Now, there's nothing worse than when a player that used to play for your side then goes and carves you up. And it has been 13 or 14 years since Jack Gunston was a Crow, but he was incredible. Mark Keane's had an amazing season, All-Australian squad, but he taught him a lesson on Friday night.
Yeah, he did, and I just want to have a look at some of the work rate and the lead-up sort of footy IQ that Jack Gunston has. So this is his first one, and yes, you're giving the guy the pocket, which is what most defences would be happy with, but that's a complete defensive breakdown from Adelaide. Yep. But this here, if you're an up-and-coming key forward or someone that wants to work on your forward craft, just watch this clip. Does not stop moving, in and out, identifies the space. Brilliant kick to put it there, but he owned that dangerous space there. And then look at how early he puts his work in here. Pushes back, knows when to engage the player, then turns and goes, gets the ball on a lead, pushes off. Brilliant mark. Brilliant kick again, yes. And this is this lack of pressure from up the field and what we're seeing. But Jack Gunston, this here, knowing that he can't impact, getting out the back because he knows he's taken Mark Keane close enough to the contest. Keane's got sucked in, he's ball watching, takes the mark, gets the free kick. Jack Gunston take a bow. And that leads us to 70 goals in a season. The first time he's been able to do it in his 16th season. Jack Gunston, All-Australian this year. That's in some pretty good company, Xander.
It's amazing. 33 years old, and we're not just talking about him in the sense that he's a veteran that's performing above his weight. This is a guy that's genuinely having a historic season by modern standards. 70 goals, could still have 2 more games to come. I mean, all the focus has been on Jezza for hitting the ton, but Jack Gunston, there's a world where he maybe even kicks 80 in the high 70 goals. Best season of his career, but just amazing what he's been able to do. And it's funny that he almost came back from Brisbane in a mentoring role. You know, he was there to maybe battle it out at Box Hill or get the occasional game, but teach some of that craft that we spoke about to the younger forwards. And he's just gone out and he's doing a job on some of the best key defenders in the game every single week. But I said he might get to 80. Let's not jump the gun here because there is a bit of an injury concern over him and Jack Ginnivan. Probably more so on Ginnivan, who struggled with hamstring soreness all throughout last week. Only trained for about 30 minutes at main training on Wednesday morning. He was named to play, but laboured through a fair bit of the game, and he was taken off for the back half of the fourth quarter, and that was because of more hamstring soreness. So that'll be monitored through the week. Jack Gunston as well, he went straight down to the rooms about midway through the last quarter with a complaint of some minor hamstring soreness. He'll also be monitored through the start of the week. I wouldn't expect to see either of them out on the track really for much of this week. My question to you is more around Ginnivan than Gunston. He's had an issue with hamstring soreness through last week. He labours through the game, doesn't have his best performance. Can you trust his hamstring, if it's sore again post Friday night, to perform on Friday night the next week?
Well, I mean, I'm not in a position to be able to comment on that specifically, but the explosive nature of Jack Ginnivan and his game. And we saw, 8 disposals on Friday night, wasn't at his best, and I feel like he was potentially a little bit hampered by that hamstring. He's a player that loves to either get up to stoppage, explode out of there, and then explode to beat his opponent. So as a player like that myself, when you don't have your one wood, it is hard to sort of work out where to go from there. I know they'll monitor him closely. If he's available for selection, they will select him, obviously. Yep. But he just looked a little bit off than what we've seen in previous finals, or what we even saw last week against GWS, Jack Ginnivan. So that's definitely a watch for mine.
Luke Bruce, the other one playing for Box Hill today, suffered a gruesome knee injury. He was carried off the field by trainers, and it's fair to say that we've probably seen the last of Luke Bruce at AFL or VFL level, particularly in Hawthorn colours. So devastating news there, and what a player he's been for them. Probably a walk-up Hall of Famer in time. But one guy they do get back from injury, or they have over the last couple of weeks, has been Josh Weddle, and he's been slowly burning his way into some stellar form. Yeah, he is, and I think you watched him on Friday night and you thought, this guy is a guy that is built for finals. He's so athletic, his profile. He played across all 3 lines on Friday night. Played forward, played on the wing, played back at times as well. And
He can take marks, he can get back and help out with defensive spoils like that. He can come forward and take big marks. And then his athletic ability to do this, to work off his opponent, he's so strong. But then have a couple of bounces. Yes, doesn't quite finish in glory for him, but I'm putting him on the agenda. He is someone, if they play 2 more finals, even if they play 1 more, he is someone that can genuinely take the game away from the opposition. I love what he does. I love his versatility, which is something that Sam Mitchell would absolutely love. And when he went out of the team in round 16, I sort of had a question mark around whether that was going to cost Hawthorn if he wouldn't be back because of what he can give in big games. We saw a glimpse of it last week. We saw more of it last night. And I can't help but think we're going to see more of it on Friday night against Geelong.
Now, we touched on the fact that Hawthorn's defence and Collingwood's as well have been so strong throughout the year, and it's no easy task for Adelaide to take on those two sides. But the delivery on Adelaide's offensive part wasn't probably where it needed to be.
So this is where you think, okay, what is it for Adelaide that's not working in finals? And for me, it's pressure. It's perceived pressure, and it's the actual pressure. So here, Jordan Dawson has a clear, easy target out the back. I think he sort of thinks 50-50 and then doesn't quite hit the kick. But then we're just seeing really poor skill errors from coming out of their back half, giving up goals, not being able to hit targets, making the wrong decision, and not through lack of wanting to hit the scoreboard, but the more hungry you are sometimes in finals, the more the pressure's up, the more you go into your shell, which in turn makes you a little bit more selfish, not giving the first give, making poor skill errors. A man that's played a lot of finals, Alex Neil-Bullen there in the last one. So if you had to put it down to something for me, it's that inability to sort of ride that wave with pressure.
Now, we know that clubs often need to knock on the door of a premiership or go a deep run into finals before they can go all the way. You look at all these premiership sides, you know, the Brisbanes, the Geelongs, the Collingwoods, all had a false run, a false start in a final series before. Richmond 2017, probably the only exception. Is it fair to say that's what happened with Adelaide here? They just weren't ready for what finals footy brought to them? Yeah,
and I think probably the most brutal part for Adelaide is how quick their rise was. They were 15th last year, and then they go to obviously winning a minor premiership, which is a phenomenal rise and something that should be applauded. They won the home and away season, but it then puts this whole lot of expectation on your club because you've been the best team in the home and away season, but you still haven't really played a whole lot of finals. There's not a whole lot of finals experience in your group. And I think at the end that was kind of to their detriment, as silly as that sounds. And they will be absolutely a far better team for the run in finals this year. It's going to be a fair bit of pain for the short term, but I can't help but think for the next 2, 3, 4 years, we've said on this program that it's going to be sustained success with their list and what it looks like. So hang in there for the long run because I don't think the Adelaide Crows are going anywhere when it comes to finals next year.
All right, from 6 down to 4. The preliminary final stage is set, and it's going to be 2 blockbusters at the MCG. We've got Geelong and Hawthorn on the Friday night, the first bounce at 7:40 p.m, and then we go to the Saturday game, which is the Pies and Brisbane 5:15 bounce, the twilight game there.
That one might divide the round so far, panel.
It will, I know, but it's going to be tense. It's going to be very tense next week. Make sure you tune in, get the popcorn out. What are your tips?
I've got Geelong, Brisbane. I said when they came up against each other.
What is this?
Oh, I'm guessing you're going to tip the Pies. I said when they came up against each other in the first round of finals that I still thought they would be the 2 teams that are there in the last day of September, and that's what I'm sticking with.
Go Pies, should I say it? I don't know. Go Lions.
It'll be a great game regardless.
See you later. Thanks for joining us. Of course, all thank you to our friends at Amy.